Hi everyone, it's Liam here from Rating the Races. So let's have a look at the handicap chasers, their mark changes and where we think they could go next. We'll start off with, let's go to the first page, That's Alright Gino, who's dropped £1 to 144 after running no sort of race in the plate at the Cheltenham Festival. This was clearly not his running. Was never travelling, didn't jump very well and was pulled up plenty soon enough. And to be honest, I think you can just ignore that. And it's probably quite nice that they dropped him £1. I mean, he went off 5 to 1 favourite for the plate anyway, and the handicapper then dropped him £1 just for a complete no-show. He's obviously better than that, and wherever he goes next, he'll be interesting. I imagine we'll see him here in the Silver Trophy back at Cheltenham in April. When is it? It's the 19th of April. Over the same course and distance, yeah, and you would imagine that he would run a much better race. And if he does, he should go off favourite again. He went off favourite for a plate, and just the one bad run shouldn't mean he has lost his way. He hasn't lost his way. It was just that one run where things clearly didn't. It wasn't a going day. Second horse I want to talk about is Funambule Savola, who dropped £1 to 156. Now, obviously quite high in the handicap still, off 156, but was sent off 50 to 1 for the champion chase. And I think that demonstrates the horse isn't going to win a champion chase, isn't going to win a Grade 1 anytime soon. So it's almost a waste of time running in the Grade 1 at Aintree. However, one thing we must say is back here in April 2021, so a few years ago, he ran at Aintree in a Grade 1, and he wasn't beaten that far behind by Shishkin. A reproduction of that run in this race, the handicap, the 2 mile handicap, off 156, you'd think that Funambule Savola should run a really big race. The likely fast pace should suit, and I think Funambule Savola would be staying on strongly, and would probably suggest and show that he's better than a handicapper, but not quite good enough for the graded events, or the Grade 1 events at least. So yeah, I'd like to see Funambule Savola in the 2 mile handicap rather than running in the Grade 1 and finishing 5th or 6th. Moving on to Nasalam. I know the step up in trip to 3 mile for the Ultima was meant to bring out some improvement, and to be honest, I don't think he got home. I don't think it did bring out any improvement. I think he regressed, or not. He didn't regress, but the run wasn't as good as he had been running over 2.5, and I think he needs to be dropped back in trip now to the 2.5. Clearly not. Didn't stay the 3 mile. He came there going quite nicely, but then didn't appear to get home, in my opinion. So where do you go with this horse who has ability? What about this race here, the Sussex Champion Chase? Obviously Gary Moore loves Plumpton, has a very good record at the course, and he's previously finished second here, giving £4 to Alexa de Nutz, who's still rated 146. So running off 143 probably suggests that he's quite nicely handicapped on that bit of form. That was at Plumpton. So yeah, there's plenty to like about that. It's not a bad race. 0 to 145, he's 143, so just about gets in. And if you saw Nasalam in this race against these horses, would you expect Nasalam to beat them? Yes, absolutely. I mean, none of these would be or would have been aimed at those 2.5 handicaps at Cheltenham. Nasalam had been running well. So yeah, I think the Sussex Champion Chase at Plumpton would be ideal for Nasalam. Moving on to Frere Bamboo, dropped £2 to 133, and another one that didn't appear to stay the trip. Was stepped up 2.5 mile. I know some pundits and analysts had been suggesting the 2.5 should suit. I don't think it's the 2.5 that suits. I think it's the way he needs to be ridden. He needs to be ridden cold out the back, weighted with, and hope they go a strong pace and he can run on through horses. So where could they go with Frere Bamboo, who you can see he did trade a little bit short. He traded 8.2 from 22.22. So he travelled nicely, but you know, finishing 12th suggests to me he didn't get home. I would be looking at probably their close brothers Red Rum. He finished 4th in this race off 137 in 2021. He was 9th off 142, so you know, 9th off 142, 4th off 137, 133. You know, you'd be disappointed if he didn't run a big race, and finishing on those numbers, he should finish in the front three. So yeah, I see no reason why they won't come here for the 2 mile race for whoever I just said, Ferrer Bamboo. If that doesn't work and he disappoints again, then hopefully they'll come back for the Burn Group Handicap Chase in October at Ascot. The next horse who also dropped £2 is Jacamar, down to 130. I said before the race at Kempton, he's not a Class 2 horse, he's a Class 3 horse. Every time he steps up to Class 2, he just struggles to keep up. You know, he can run on past beaten horses, but he was never going to win on Saturday at Kempton, and has just plugged on into 5th. But the handicapper dropped him back to 130, and I think there is a race for him here at Aintree. So if they are aiming for the bigger meetings, you know, the Ascots, the Kemptons, the Cheltenhams, they can still go to Aintree, but not on Grand National Week. Go here the following month in May, 13th of May. This handicap, it's not the 13th of May this year. When is it? It is the 19th of May, Friday the 19th of May. This handicap should suit. It's down to a Class 3. It's easier horses he can keep up and then finish strongly. Moving on to the next horse, Mr. Coffee, and I know a lot of people will completely disagree with this and just say he's rubbish, he's gone at the game, and all those standard phrases that people say when they've had a bet on a horse and it gets beat. So yeah, he was never winning the 3 mile 5 Amateur Jockeys Novice Chase, the Grade 2 at Cheltenham. Should have finished 4th, would have finished 4th if Mile of Mission had stayed up. Obviously did manage to finish 3rd, but the handicapper dropped him £2 to 143. And I think that's the key with Mr. Coffee. I really believe he needs to be in a handicap. He was running off levels here against horses higher rated than him, and over a distance too far. Drop him back in trip, and drop him back for this race here, the Staffordshire Plate in, when is it? It is on the 6th of May. I really think that would be ideal, because the trip suits. He's run well at Uttoxeter before, last time out, or 2 runs ago, wasn't it? 2 runs ago, he ran well, he finished 2nd. I think a lot of people thought he was going to win. I thought he was going to win that day. But he's down to 143 again, and I think he would run a really big race at Uttoxeter in that Staffordshire Plate. Again, looking at the horses that contested it last time, would you expect Mr. Coffee to beat these? And I absolutely would expect Mr. Coffee to beat these. A lot of these are not the Cheltenham horses. They've all given up at that point, and it's the potential early summer horses that generally aren't as good, and I'd be disappointed if Mr. Coffee couldn't win a race like this. Moving on to Musical Slave, another one to drop £2, dropped £2 to 133 after disappointing in the Kinmure. Interestingly, he's disappointed in the Kinmure before when he was 9th in 2021. So maybe he just doesn't act at Cheltenham, or maybe he doesn't act in the Kinmure, you know, the course and distance. So where do you go with him? I think it's an obvious one for him, isn't it? Back to this Bet365 Gold Cup. Okay, he has a, is it a P to his name last time out? Yeah, he'll have a P to his name. That just means you get a slightly bigger price about him than you should do. 2nd last year, beaten by Hewick, in front of Kitty's Light, in front of Captain Orr. That's really good form. And he's well weighted now. He's only £3 higher than when he ran in it last year. I mean, if Hewick and Kitty's Light and Captain Orr were in this, which they may be, you may see some of them in the Bet365. Are they going to be as well handicapped as Musical Slave on the day? Probably not. And Musical Slave has already proven that he handles the course and the distance. So yeah, Musical Slave, look out for him in the Bet365 Gold Cup. Next one is Beakstown, who we didn't do a handicap analysis last week, which we were going to. He ended up running again after that. at Kempton, and I suggested in a tweet, if you follow my tweets as well, I suggested that he wasn't going to be making any effort at Kempton, which I'm pretty sure he didn't. He drifted out to 25 to 1 outside of the field and ran no sort of race whatsoever. He pulled up. Now, by pulling up, however, he's dropped £3 to a mark of 130. So where could they go with him? They could end up in the same race that they won last year, this listed handicap chase at Ayr, where he ran off 129, so he's only £1 higher. I would quite like to see him, however, in this race, the Topham. I think he's nicely handicapped. Well, he is nicely handicapped, being only £1 higher than his last win. And I'm hoping this has been the plan. We know Dan Skelton can get his horses very well handicapped, and obviously 84 grand to the winner here is certainly worth going for, compared to just the 22 at Ayr. I'm hoping they're going for the Topham, and I think he could run a big race in the Topham if that's been the plan for him. I think that's quite key. Whatever the plan race is for him is where he will run a big race. 2 more to go. The penultimate one is Happy Go Lucky, who dropped £3 to 143 after finishing 9th in the Ultima Handicap. A race that I think will work out well. Correct Rambler, Fast or Slow, Monbeg Genius, The Goffer, Oscar Elite, T Clipper, Carl Philippe, 300 through 5. I think all of them will go well in races, either this season or the next season. And we've already highlighted 10th Nassalam as one to look out for next time. I think Happy Go Lucky is another one. He was up there towards the front for a long way before just getting tired late on. Now, the handicap has been kind and dropped him £3 to 143, which is the exact mark that he won this Betway Handicap chase 2 years ago. Obviously didn't run in it last year, but if he comes back again, you would have to think he would run a big race again at Aintree in the race that he won 2 years ago. The final horse in the video is Time Hill. He's clearly a very classy horse. It hasn't worked, or it didn't work last time out in the Brown Advisory. If you forgive him that run, though, he's got some really good form, and the handicap has given him a real chance by dropping him £5. The last 2 years at Aintree, he's gone off 3 to 1 and 5 to 2 for the Liverpool Hurdle, the Stayers Hurdle at Aintree. The Grade 1, he's won it once and he finished 5th last year. So if he turned up in the 3 mile handicap of 151, surely he would have a massive chance. As you know, I'm a big fan of graded horses dropping into handicaps and winning off top weight. It does work. Brave Man's Game, Lum Press, and obviously on the flat we had the one in the Northumberland Plate that I can't think of his name, trained by Alan King. Yeah, it's not coming. Horses of top weight in handicaps, it's because they're actually better horses than the rest. They are able to carry that weight around, and I'd be disappointed if Time Hill couldn't carry that weight and run a big race in the Betway Handicap Chase, over 3 mile at Aintree. So just a quick recap. That's Alright Gino, forgive that run, look out for him in the Silver Trophy Cheltenham in April. Funambule Savola isn't a graded horse, hopefully drops in class for the Red Rum. Nassalam drop back in trip, go to Plumpton as well to win the Sussex Champion Chase. Ferro Bamboo also needs to drop back in trip and run in the Close Brothers Red Rum, where he's finished 9th and 4th off higher marks. Jacomar isn't a class 2 horse, he's a class 3 horse. Where could he run? He could go to Aintree, but in the May meeting for this 2.5 mile handicap. Mr. Coffee, I would still want to give him another chance in a handicap. Go back to Utoxeter for the Staffordshire Plate. I think he'd run well. Musical Slave has to come back for that Bet365 Gold Couple for £3 higher mark than last year when finishing 2nd. Beakstown is only £1 higher than when winning at Ayr, but I hope to see him in the Topham at Aintree. Happy Go Lucky has dropped £3 back to his mark that he won the 3 mile handicap at Aintree 2 years ago, and hopefully that's where he comes back to. And I think Time Hill could also run a big race in that race if he turns up off his 151 mark after dropping £5 after disappointing in the Brown Advisory.